Adjustments we don't need to do for the moment. You can set up rate profiles in here. So if you set that up here, for example, you could put, I've used this in the past for rate profile selection, but yeah, that's a bit advanced, so we'll leave all of that for the moment. We don't need servos because that's to do with wings really. Yeah, flaps and ailerons and all that sort of stuff, so definitely don't need that. Motors is probably the next important thing we need to do. Always remember, this is super important, remove all propellers. Okay, you can use this tab to check your motors and check the direction of the motors. You can't actually change the direction of motors if they're wired up incorrectly or not the right way round anyway. And we can just click the I understand risks here. You need to plug in a battery, make sure your props are off, plug in, okay, and then if we can do it one by one. So we can see motor 1 is going. Another thing you can do is just click on the thing and just click the up arrow. Okay, but that's working. That's motor 2, motor 3, motor 4, and there we go. So you can just check that your motors are working there. All right, undo that. Again, we'll go and have a look in BL Heli and to discuss updating the firmware of your ESC and also changing motor direction. So you definitely have to check that your motors are spinning the right way. The easiest way to do that basically is to just go, say it's 1, and you just very lightly go like this, okay, and it's starting, and then just touch the motor very slightly on the side, and then you can see which direction it's going. All right, don't have this going too fast, otherwise you'll burn your fingers with the motor spinning. So really lightly, and then I can see that number 1 is going outwards here, which is what we want, okay? And you check all your motors going that way. We can do this again in BL Heli and just make sure that all our motors are spinning in the right direction. So we can disconnect, we don't need the battery on anymore. Again, always remember your ESC is burning away when you've got your battery in, and the quad is not moving through the air. Again, if none of this is working, all right, and you click that and you plug in a battery and nothing happens at all, you need to go back to your configuration tab and make sure that you've got the correct ESC and motor protocol set to DShot 600. All right, and again, it could be to do with flashing the firmware, which we'll cover in a later lesson. Okay, so that was motors. Next really important thing is the OSD. This is what you're going to see on your in your goggles. Okay, and you need to specify what it is you want to see in your goggles. Again, refer to the lesson notes. I've got all of this in the lesson notes, but you're going to need all of these things like RSSI. Definitely. So it starts off by default with warnings. You've got 3 different profiles here. You're only going to be using 1, so you actually only need to tick 1 of these. Don't really need all of that. Okay, so without that, that's going to disappear. You definitely need low voltage warning. Other things you're going to need are like RSSI value. That's very important. I usually stick that up over here. Okay, like that. Main battery voltage. Battery voltage is going to go, where do I normally put that? I normally put that bottom right over here. What else do you need? A timer. Timer 2 is usually the good one to go for. I usually put that over here. I mean, it depends, you know, you can put this wherever you want. Just be careful, sometimes you might find that this is out of range actually within your goggles, so you might need to come back and move it in a bit, or just play around with that and make sure that you are seeing all of these things that you've configured here in your OSD. I usually have VTX channel. That's very important for your sorry, I usually put that over there rather. For if you're racing and you're changing channels all the time, you definitely need to know what channel you're on. That's a super important one. I usually don't have to have this, but I normally have a little thing saying I'm disarmed. A little bit sticky sometimes, but yeah, you get it right. Again, you might have the craft name up here, and I don't know why that's coming up with TDI disarm, but oh, hang on, it's in the wrong way, isn't it? There we go. Sorry, it was behind. Okay, so you can put that up there. That's TBS source 1. What else is there? There is, I think that's, I mean, you can have a play around with all of these, whatever you want, but just bear in mind, the more things you have, the more busy it's going to be, and yeah, also the more it's going to stress your CPU as well. Sometimes this is quite a nice thing to have, is your crash arrow, flip after crash arrow, to saying which way the motors are going to be spinning, to help you do your flip over crash. I don't go any of this stuff, to be honest. Yep, so that's really about it for your OSD. Don't forget to save it. Again, play around with the different settings if you want. These are the ones I recommend. All of this will be in the notes. Next thing is your video transmitter. Okay, you need to set up your VTX tables by going to this page here. It will show you a page to go to. Let's bring this over here. Okay, so all right, so we don't have any VTX table. We're using remember, a TBS VTX, so we're going to need the TBS software for this. Okay, the TBS VTX table, and in here you'll see the IRC. The two main ones are IRC Tramp for the USA and EU. Some of them use the IRC Tramp, but we're using the TBS SmartAudio. Okay, so all you need to do here is TBS used on most VTX that support this one, and that's the one we'll need. So we're going to right click that and open that up. And you can do this one of two ways. You can either save it to a file. I sometimes just copy this to the clipboard, and I can load it from the clipboard. Okay, if you do that, it loads it in there. So all of these are your different bands and your channels, and bands and channels are, will ultimately give you your what's called your frequency. So the band is Fat Shark. Okay, if you're on F and channel 4 band and channel 4, you're going to be on the frequency of 5800. And some of these you might not need. You might not be flying race band. You might not be flying Boscam E, so you can play around with those. Generally, I use Fat Shark and race band, but I leave these on. That's okay. The other main thing you need to do is check your number of power levels. And for the power levels, you need to check the manual for your video transmitter, your VTX. We're using the TBS Unify Pro 5G8HV, and if we go down to the table on this, it'll give you a whole lot of information, but what we're looking for here is the output power. Okay, so under TBS Pro 5G8, you can see that it's got 4 different output power levels. When you race, generally we race at 25 milliwatts, so as not to stomp each other's channels. But this will go all the way up to 800 milliwatts, which will give you a greater range. So if you're flying on your own, you can pump it up to that. Just bear in mind that 800 milliwatts is going to get it a bit hotter, a bit quicker, but it'll give you a better range. But we don't need much range when we're racing, so we usually use 25. So we're going to use 4 channel bands here, okay, 25, 200, 500 and 800. And all we need to do is go 25, 200, 500, and this one here is going to be 4, and we'll put that up to 800 there. Okay, and that's it. You've got your bands and channels. And again, we'll look at this in the goggles or on our monitor when we actually fire up and look at the video signal for this, and we can set our channel and our frequency, band and channel and frequency in our OSD. Okay, and I'll show you how to do that. You can actually set it here as well if you wanted to set it to whatever. Have to start with band. So we could say I want, quite often as default, I just set it to Fat Shark 4, which is a fairly common one, 5800. So I'd do that, and I'd set it to maybe 25 because I'm usually racing. If you wanted to, you set it 500 or 800 or whatever, and you could save it as that. And the first time you power up, you'll see it will be on Fat Shark channel 4, 5800, and it'll have a 25 milliwatt output of power. Okay, so that is your video transmitter setup, and there's not really a lot else to do actually. I think that's almost about it. We've got we don't need to worry about sensors, tethered logging, no, black box. I normally actually turn all of this off, but just leave it, that's okay. We obviously, as you get further into the hobby, you will learn more commands in the CLI, but for the moment, the ones that I've shown you, the diff all to back up your flight controller, is the main one that you'll need at the moment. So yeah, we can now go and test arm the quad. So we can actually power on our, let's disconnect here, and we can disconnect from there, power on our radio.
Welcome to OpenTX.
And if we go power on, plug in USB first. Let's just test beepers and things like that. Connect there. Okay, so we've got modes, and we know that we can see that the beeper's working. Okay, so at the moment I've just got the USB plugged in. I've not got any power plugged in. Nothing will happen there, right? This one here, when it's not plugged in, it will work, but it'll say arming disabled, like I said. Okay, angle is on SA, and default in the backward position is going to be on angle. If you want to move to acro, you go to either the two other states. Moving down to beeper, that's your beeper working. Okay, and flip over crash was this one here. So I need to click that twice to get to there, to get to flip over crash. And those are your modes working. And like I say, one of the first things you might want to do is to test that your failsafe is working properly. We've got it set to drop. And if we disconnect from here, okay, we plug in a battery. Okay, so we've checked that our beeper's working, okay, and if I flick the arm switch, our motors work, okay, And what we're going to do, just to check that the fail-safe is working, we're going to arm it. All right, I've got the throttle down. We're going to arm the quad, and then we're going to power off our receiver. All right, so let's do that now.
Receiver still connected.
And enter to shut down, and the motors will stop. And that's what you want. Okay, that's a good thing to check. So that's about it for Betaflight. Just unplug that. Again, never keep your VTX burning away. Plug back into USB. And so we've calibrated our accelerometer. We've checked the ports. Obviously, we've got to go and check our video in a minute. We'll do that in a minute. But we've got the receiver working. We've got all the switches working. We've set up our configuration here. Power and battery we've done. Failsafe we've done. PID tuning. The only thing we changed in there was the throttle limit. Okay, like I said, to 70%. Receiver, we've set the endpoints correctly. We've got all of that working. We've set up our modes. We've got our arm switch, angle, beeper, and flip over crash. Okay, don't need that, don't need that. We've checked motors. We'll do a little bit more on that in a minute. We've done our OSD, which again we're going to check on our monitor. We've set up our video transmitter with the right VTX table, and we are good to go.